Welcome to Biome. I am your host and narrator, Alex Zubin. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you are having a wonderful week. Dear listener, today I am excited to share Story 8 of Season 1 with you. If you believe in supporting great stories and the authors who write them, subscribe to this podcast and share it with your friends. You can also support us on Patreon and get early access to all episodes and much more. Our story today is Bright Eyes and the Lantern Path by M.D. Smith IV. M.D. Smith IV of Huntsville, Alabama, writer of over 350 flash stories, has published digitally in Spillwords, Flash Fiction Magazine, Flash Phantoms, and many more. Retired from running a television station, he lives with his wife of 64 years and 3 cats. And now, let's live this story together. The French Quarter is our home. Tarantulena claims she's my owner and calls me Bright Eyes, her black cat. She insists she rescued me from a storm drain when I was a half-drowned kitten, but the truth is, it's the other way around. Otherwise, why would she take me with her everywhere along the cobblestones, parks, and alleys? Why would she feed me the finest scraps from cafes, bathe me only when I smell too ghastly, and provide me warm, free lodging while she works for a living? Humans tell themselves stories that make them feel in control. I let them. Often, my eyes light the path like sodium lights for Tarantulena when her concentration strays in the dark. Tarantulena doesn't consider painting on Jackson Square to be a job. It feeds the hands, not the soul, she always says. Most days, she earns enough selling paintings of swamp spirits and half-forgotten ancestors. Still, she rarely uses her witchy talents, only when the world tips too far into darkness. I remember the day she saw a young girl fall from a streetcar near the canal. Her arm bent the wrong way, at an angle no living limb should reach. She pushed through the onlookers, while I slipped between legs, unseen and unheard, because nobody sees a black cat unless it wants to be seen. Tarantulena leaned over the sobbing teen, waved an eagle feather, whispered a chant older than the quarter itself, and the broken arm straightened with a soft pop. "It's just a bruise," she told the crowd. But the girl, tear-streaked and trembling, murmured, "Wow, like magic. Thanks." I brushed against Tarantulena's ankles. She winked. Magic leaves a taste in the air, metallic and sweet, like lightning on the tongue. After we rid New Orleans of Dracor and his 5 wicked daughters 2 years ago, life grew calm, peaceful even, the sort of peace that makes cats lazy and witches restless. From our apartment above the corner of Canal and Bourbon, nights shimmered with light and laughter and jazz drifting through cracked shutters. Below, life burned bright. Inside, all was calm. My plush, round bed sat beside Tarantulena's. "Oh, Bright Eyes," she murmured one night, stroking my head, "I don't know how I'd live without your golden gaze. You've saved us both more than once." I purred loud enough to make her smile. Her hand slowed, her breaths deepened. Humans fall asleep so easily. But I stayed awake. I always do. Because peace never lingers in the quarter. Evil seeps through the cracks like a rising damp, soft, silent, patient. This time, it came in the form of Drizelda and her venomous sister, Prunella, descendants of the Darkwood Kentucky clan. Their magic was the old kind, black-lacquered, oil-thick, cruel. They oozed into the city like a slow plague, beautiful, poised, deadly. Their game was murder for profit. They poisoned wealthy families, then offered the cure for a price. Refuse? Dead by dawn. Their magic left no trace, only grief. When Tarantulena read the morning paper, I leapt onto the table and pawed the headline. Mysterious deaths of two prominent families. You're right, Bright Eyes, she said grimly. It's up to us. I flicked my tail. She knew what that meant. My eyes are not merely gold. They are light, and not just a pathlight. Their glow melts wills, softens minds, and makes the strongest person pliable as heated wax. A guide's light, a hunter's light, a light meant for the dark. Still, we needed bait. For 2 nights, Tarantulena hunted the quarter's darker corners, where the air tasted of absinthe, lust, perfume, and old sins. By day she painted and sold postcards to tourists. By night she whispered to spirit traders, potion sellers, and the mad women who read fortunes in spilled rum. Tell Drizelda, she murmured, that I have a cure even her poisons can't undo, a power she'll want to see. Rumors gallop faster than carriages in New Orleans. On the 3rd night, a raven landed on our balcony, eyes glinting with borrowed intelligence. It carried a scrap of parchment. She took it from the bird, who gave a squawk like it expected a tip. We went to the table to sit and read it. No question who it was from. I jumped up on the table and let out a soft meow while she unfolded the curled paper. She gave me a loving scratch under my chin. We read the scratchy handwriting in red ink. Midnight will come to you. The hour arrived heavy with mist. Even the jazz had died away. Only the distant river whispered against its banks. But no one came. They like to build suspense, Tarantulena said. A delay for a meeting can heighten anxiety, but I know just what they are up to. I expect they'll show in about 30 minutes. At 12:30, 2 silhouettes appeared at the foot of our stairs. They walked up with stealth, so smoothly that their heads didn't bob on each step. Drizelda wore a gown blacker than tar, her smile thin as a razor. Prunella glided beside her, tall and silent, with eyes like oil pooling beneath moonlight. Reaching the top, they entered our apartment door. The air grew icy enough to frost the window panes. Candles flickered inside, though no wind blew. Tarantulena stood tall in her crimson robe. I crouched beside her, tail twitching. You summoned us, Drizelda purred. You claimed to possess a charm against death? Not a claim, Tarantulena said. A promise. A heartbeat of stillness. Then a flick of Drizelda's hand, a hissed Latin phrase, a concussion spell struck like a cannon blast. The room exploded in white light. Walls shook. Tarantulena flew back and crumpled against the wall. My head rang and my body rolled like a rag doll. Before I could leap up, Prunella rushed forward, yanked a black sack from her cloak, and trapped me inside. My yowl muffled into the fabric. It was porous in places, and I could still peep out. Got it, she said. Good, Drizelda replied, stepping over me. She kneeled beside the near-unconscious Tarantulena and smirked. We know all about your cat. She nodded to her sister. Tie her hands behind her back. Her spells are worthless without her arms. Prunella obeyed, jerking Tarantulena upright. As they gloated, and villains always gloat, I shredded a seam in the sack with claws sharp as sewing needles. I widened it slowly, quietly. And when we drown you both in the river, Drizelda continued, encased in concrete, no one will ever find you or your claimed cure for our poison spells. That's right, Prunella echoed. I pushed my head through the rip and let out the loudest hiss of my 9 lives. They turned towards me, foolishly, triumphantly, and looked into my eyes. Too late. The golden fire within me flared like a lighthouse breaking through storm fog. A light that was not meant to comfort, but to command. Their minds melted instantly, thoughts softening, liquefying. Prunella trembled. "What do you wish us to do?" Druselda stared blankly, lips parted but empty. Tarantulena shook off her dizziness and straightened. "Untie me first," she commanded. Prunella freed her. I slipped from the sack and leaped onto Tarantulena's shoulder. "Now," she said, "follow us." We led them through the sleeping quarter, down streets slick with fog and moonlight. My eyes glowed ahead of us, casting twin golden beams along the cobblestones, a lantern path for witches enslaved by their own greed. Tarantulena whispered, "Bright Eyes, you're glowing brighter than usual." I knew. My powers always flared strongest before an ending. We turned towards the outskirts where the city meets its dead bones, past shuttered shops, ghost-lit lamps, and a stray saxophone's echo from nowhere. The night grew colder. The scent of rot sharpened. Beside an abandoned butcher shop lay an old lye pit. It had once dissolved animal carcasses. Now it waited for something far more deserving. Warped and sagging boards covered the pit. Tarantulena raised her hand and they slid aside with a groan. "Walk forward," she instructed. The sisters obeyed, their steps slow and dreamlike. At the edge, they stepped into the darkness without hesitation. The black liquid swallowed them with a hiss. Bubbles frothed, then stilled. Tarantulena slid the boards back into place. I leaped onto her shoulder and licked the blood drying on her cheek from her fall. She laughed softly. "We won't see them again." But she didn't sound convinced. Neither was I. As we turned away, my eyes glowed brighter from something. A warning. "Something's wrong," Tarantulena whispered. And it was. The shadows behind the butcher shop shifted, slowly and deliberately, like a figure rising from a crouch. A silhouette taller than the sisters, bulkier, older, wrapped in tatters of long dead fabric. A voice rasped from the darkness. "You have taken what belongs to me." Tarantulena stiffened. "Dracor?" "No," the figure growled. "His father." The air dropped 10 degrees. Frost grew on brick. The Darkwood clan's patriarch stepped fully into view, and even I felt fear curl like smoke in my belly. His eyes were voids, his fingers bone thin, his skin ash-colored. "Those girls," he said, "were promised to me, their souls my tithe." Tarantulena whispered, "Bright Eyes, run if you must." Run? I am a guide, a guardian, a lantern. I jumped from her shoulder and planted myself between her and the figure. My eyes burned like twin suns. The patriarch laughed. "Your stare cannot melt me, little cat." He was right. His mind was a black cavern with nothing soft to shape. But my light had other uses. I widened my stance, focused, poured every spark of magic through my gaze, and the world around us ignited in gold. My light struck the ground and formed a path, glowing lines snaking outward, curving around Tarantulena and me. The cobblestones lit like fireflies trapped beneath glass. Tarantulena gasped. "Bright Eyes, you're making a circle." Not a circle, a sigil. Old, powerful, forbidden. My claws etched marks into the glowing lines, scratching symbols only a cat could carve with such precision. The patriarch lunged, the sigil flared. A column of gold fire shot upward, curved, then down, encasing him. He screamed, roared, and thrashed, but the light burned through him, unraveling centuries of dark magic. In seconds, he dissolved into dust. The light faded, leaving only stillness. Tarantulena sank to her knees. "Bright Eyes, how did you—" I walked to her and bumped my head against her shin. Some magic has no words. Some guides do not speak. Some lights are meant to stand between the living and the dark. We walked home in silence, my glow dimmed below its usual simmer. The effort drained me, and I needed a very long nap. The city breathed easy, and even the shadows seemed relieved. Back in our apartment, Tarantulena collapsed onto her bed. I curled beside her, took a deep breath, my chin dropped on the spread. "You know," she murmured half asleep, "people think I'm the witch." I purred softly. "But it's you," she whispered. "You're the guide. You always were." Her breathing slowed. Her heartbeat softened. I stayed awake, watching the window, watching the dark, because somewhere, someday, another shadow will rise. And when it does, my eyes will glow again, golden lanterns cutting a path through the night. The French Quarter sleeps, but I do not. This story has it all. Elements of Southern Gothic, hints of cozy fantasy, and a feisty, lovable narrator who brings it all together. The story may take place in a dangerous world of ancient demons, but with Bright Eyes as our friend and our guide, we can feel safe. Cats have been protectors since time immemorial. Archaeologists find depictions of veneration of cats in ancient Egypt going back to the very first dynasty, which is over 5,000 years ago. The first true writing in nearby Mesopotamia is only a couple hundred years older than that. It's not a stretch to say that almost as long as people have been writing, they've been writing about cats. And it's not just Egypt. Japan has the Manake Neko, or beckoning cat. In the US, we largely know it as the cat figurines with the waving paws at the front of shops and restaurants. Cats are also one of the few animals allowed in Islamic mosques, and in the Norse culture, cats were associated with the goddess Freya, especially in regards to magic and protection. This story takes that rich legacy and brings it into the world of the Old South, the world explored by the Southern Gothic genre. Some telltale signs that you might be reading a Southern Gothic piece are images of decay and ruin, which we see in the mentions of the city's dead bones and the smells of rot in this story. They also include echoes of past sins, especially across family lineages, such as the mention of the Darkwood clan. And of course, Southern Gothic tales take place in the South, pretty much by definition. But I wouldn't put this piece squarely in the Southern Gothic genre. Tarantulena may be a witch, but she is kind, helping heal an injured girl, no strings attached. When she's not protecting New Orleans, she paints and snuggles with her cat. Along with Bright Eyes, she sounds like the kind of friend I'd like to have. This reminds me of the cozy fantasy genre, in which conflicts are usually pretty low stakes, and the plot focuses on heartwarming relationship building. The story elegantly balances between the wholesome and the horrible, before leading us to a happy ending in which our heroes are rewarded with a well-earned nap. So, what did you think of this story? Email me at biomespec@gmail.com. You can also find the email address in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. I also want to let you know that we've launched a poll over on Patreon to see what Season 1 story resonated with you most. Which one was your favorite? Which one did you tell your friends and family and pets about? The link is in the show notes. I'll announce the results when we close out the season. I also want to give a special thank you to Chanella, our Biosphere supporter, and a vital part of what Biome is becoming. And of course, if you haven't done so yet, please remember to follow Biome so you get each story as soon as it drops. I invite you to join me for our next incredible story coming out next Tuesday. Thank you for listening to Biome with me, your host and narrator, Alex Zubin. Until next time, farewell, wherever the days take you.